Not too long ago, I played Ender Lilies, a game I kept in my back pocket because I knew it would be amazing, and I was right. The game was beautiful with its art style and music. The combat was simple yet engaging, and there were plenty of lore bits to dive into if you were interested. With it being so popular, a sequel had to be created. So when Ender Magnolia was announced and then fully released, I was curious to see how this sequel would improve on the foundation Ender Lilies set. So walk with me. I want to show you a small sample of my journey in Ender Magnolia through the tethered steeple. Nola, Leto, and Yulvin. These are the homunculi that will aid me through my journey in the tethered steeple, like my spirits did in Ender Lilies. The difference being that I have unlimited usage of all my skills. The tethered steeple is one of the early game areas that's accessible after the game opens up. The notable monsters in this area are the ones with the flamethrower, ball and chain, and spinning blades. But there are monsters from previous areas too. This first section can be passed through quickly. If you go down the elevator, these doors might pique your interest, but you can also go to the right, which can lead you to two platforms that will move when activated. The second platform will move slightly faster. All things considered, the punishment for falling isn't all that bad, but depending on where you fall can make it more deadly. Either way, this is a pretty low stakes platforming challenge, but it's a great way to show the player that if they fall, they might have to deal with some kind of punishment, whether it be enemies, environmental hazard, or both. When completed, you might get some loot, and in this case, it's a charmed fragment. This is a permanent increase to HP by 5. That may not seem like much, but I will tell you it will add up. Trust me. Upon completing this section, you will find two notes. One of them being a tutorial on the blaze debuff, which is a dot or damage over time debuff. If you dash or jump in the water, you can remove it faster. If you explore like I did, you will come across this blaze debuff beforehand. If anything, the only issue at this point from watching myself play is that this tutorial wasn't at the entrance. An extremely minor flaw if you ask me, but I still would have liked to have known how to deal with the status ailments. Oh, by the way, the other note. Control over the homunculi is said to be similar to the magic of another time that was capable of manipulating the soul itself. A priestess of an ancient people who inhabited this land at one time is said to have taken control of souls in this way to grow her power. It seems this ancient sorcery can only be inherited through blood. It was desperately sought after by the sorceress of the House of Frost. Let's go, Ender Lilies! The developers didn't have to make it all come together lore-wise like this. However, it's a nice touch and I very much appreciate it. Going down the elevator, I meet my old friend, the Mimic. You get introduced to this concept early like the previous game. You'll see many boxes, some will look different, and those will be mimics. It was a bit more obvious due to how the boxes are lit. I did think the use of them is a bit better with a charmed fragment being involved, showing the player that items can be unbreakable objects and then introducing a mimic that can trick the player. You also get introduced to a new larger enemy type with predictable but strong attacks. He's paired with a mimic, and both of them are guarding blighted dice, an equipable relic that increases experience points gained. Shortly after will be a respite, the checkpoints in Ender Magnolia. They work the same way as they did in Ender Lilies, but later you'll be able to talk to your homunculi, and also access other things like redoing boss battles and getting extra stuff, my favorite being the extra costumes. From here, the gameplay loop repeats, of going into a section, seeing treasure to pique the player's interest, fight enemies until they come across a challenge, and then get the treasure. There will also be treasure that will be just out of reach. You can only get that stuff if you have the specific power-up that's needed. Before skipping to the main boss of the area, let me go over the optional boss. Within the tethered steeple, you will come across its executioner. In Ender Lilies, when you come across an optional boss, you know that it will become a spirit that you can obtain. It's due to that I thought that I would get the flame move like what he does here. But that's not the case. Instead, I ended up getting an ability component. These are used to upgrade the homunculi that you have. Later on, homunculi will have altered moves that you can switch to, that you can unlock. For instance, Nola having the sword, scythe, and hammer. The developers refined the system from Ender Lilies. There are a smaller amount of homunculi to unlock as you progress, but they all have different skills that might fit the situation better, a total of 3 each. Think quality over quantity. After some traveling, treasure hunting, and skill unlocking and equipping, I go on to the main boss of the area. The Shackled Beast is an extension of the enemies in the Tethered Steeple. This homunculus uses a chained weapon to hit you from a distance. If you're behind him, he might stop his attack midway so he can avoid taking more free hits. He also has a charge attack, which is pretty easy to dodge. In Phase 2, he will use a new move where he will slam the ground and chains will shoot out. While I did initially try to use the new moves that I unlocked, I beat him on the 3rd try with my old setup. I very much enjoyed the fight. The Shackled Beast isn't exactly the most complex boss, but as an early game boss, with music that elevated the moment for me, I still enjoyed my time. This zone would be a perfect way to show me that Ender Magnolia will be a great experience. But let's take a break from the gameplay. I want to talk about my thoughts on the presentation. The presentation of Ender Magnolia is stellar, but that's a quality I've always expected, for the art style and sound design to be amazing. Just like in Ender Lilies, I was always excited to see what the next level would be, or in some cases, how would they expand on what they've already shown me. For instance, the Tethered Steeple to the Crimson Forest. Both of those areas are my favorite in the early game. I also enjoyed the Sorcerer's Academy, the Steel District, and Declan's Estate. The look of Ender Magnolia, while still and in motion, are as clean as ever, especially for the style that they take inspiration from, Vanillaware. Speaking of Vanillaware, I should have expected the director, Keisuke Okabe, to be a big fan of that studio. For those that don't know, Vanillaware created games like Dragon's Crown and Unicorn Overlord. According to an article on Automaton Media, the director has stated, "If Vanillaware was not releasing a new game, then we would make it ourselves." Unicorn Overlord was a game that took 10 years to make. Okabe wanted to make his own games that used a similar style, but still distinct, which I find admirable. It's always a good quality when people take the role of an active fan, whether it be to make fan art or to use the style in a unique way for any visual media that they want to make. On the other hand, we have the sound design of Ender Magnolia, which is also top tier. The tracks that primarily use the piano and feature vocals are great, but this time around there's a little bit more variety in how the music sounds. My favorite tracks are the Old City Market, Magicite Mines, and the Shackled Beast theme. The last one is my favorite because it uses a guitar alongside a piano. Now, what about the story in Ender Magnolia? The story in Ender Magnolia is an improvement. Just before the events of the game begins, the player will see that voices will deduce that homunculi can't be human, but rather mutants. However, a woman tells the player character, which is Lilac, that she needs to seek out allies so that she can ... the homunculi. Trust me, we're not going to get a Shadow the Hedgehog moment, I promise. It's very clear that Lilac is meant to save them. This time around, the homunculi and humans that I came across were characters that I felt more attached to. Unlike in Ender Lilies, the homunculi react to certain story beats and areas that you go in. Different homunculi will have varying relationships with one another too. And it's this that got me more invested into the game. I would actively look for homunculi that I had in the moment and the lore notes that I come across through my playthrough. And this is because I wanted to know about everybody's past. Meanwhile, as I played Ender Lilies, I would only remember what I read if I cared about a very specific event. Otherwise, I more or less did it for completionist's sake. I believe there's a time and place for complete silence or letting the lore doing the talking about a place, person, or object. However, I personally fell out of majority of the game because of that. In Ender Magnolia, I truly felt like all the characters were interconnected with the story and even the side quests. I will add that nothing was hand-fed to me either. As a bonus, when Ender Magnolia referenced its prequel, I got a kick out of that too. And lastly for this section, I will mention that you do not need to play Ender Lilies in order to understand Magnolia, but I will still recommend you play both. Alright, break over. Let's talk about my favorite part, the gameplay. Let me explain how Ender Magnolia works before getting into my opinions. At the start of the game, you only have Nola, but later you unlock more homunculi of varying types. Primary, cooldown, pressure, and automaton. All of the homunculi have different methods of attacking as well. For instance, Nola has a sword, but also a scythe and a hammer. You can equip 4 homunculi at a time with whatever you see fit, but you cannot equip multiple skills from one homunculus. There are also homunculi that become abilities that help you traverse the areas. For defense, you will have a dash as your universal option. The parries need to be equipped. When fighting enemies, you will notice that they have 2 meters. The first one being HP, of course, and the second one is the poise meter. When you deplete the poise meter, you can get your free hits in. If you find yourself at low HP, you can heal yourself, but remember you have a limited amount. There are also relics and accessories. Relics give passive abilities like increasing resistance to statuses, increasing the experience points given per kill, and more. You have a limited amount of slots, but you can increase it by obtaining magic vials. The accessories that you can wear are the carapace, 2 bracelets, and a totem. Wearing these will give varying effects like granting a new ability like the parry I mentioned, and increasing your stats. The stats in the game are HP, attack, defense, healing potency, the number of heals you can have, and SP. Healing potency will determine how strong your healing is, and the number of heals can only go up to 5. SP is for attuner points. When filled, you can use a special attack from any one of the homunculi you have equipped. The only way to guarantee a refill on healing, changing homunculi, switching out relics and equipment, is to make it to a respite. Upon reaching the respite, you will also respawn every enemy that you defeated. So keep that in mind, because having the proper setup can result in a smooth or rough time during your travels, especially when certain homunculi can help you platform. These systems intertwining with one another makes the gameplay not too different to Ender Lilies, but it's the refining of the foundation and additions the developer put that makes Ender Magnolia an overall improvement. One of those is the removal of unconditional contact damage. I didn't get it at first, but when I didn't feel like fighting any monsters, that's when I finally noticed it and appreciated the removal. Whether you're running to get to a place to get some treasure, or you just want to get to where you died, without contact damage, it makes it all easier. But that is how I saw it. The developers thought a bit differently. So we introduced contact damage thinking it would be good for the game. However, in the feedback, many people found it unconvincing that you take damage from just bumping into enemies. I mean, hey, as long as it improves the player experience. The reason why I phrase it the way I did, though, is because technically, contact damage isn't completely gone. Only unconditional contact damage is. There are still enemies that achieve that similar effect, but because you can visually see it, it's more convincing. That said, this is an improvement I didn't know I wanted until I played through Ender Magnolia. Now let's talk about how Ender Magnolia refined the foundation Ender Lilies sets. Compared to the spirits in Ender Lilies, the homunculi are a more refined system. Instead of having one spirit that does one specific thing, we have one homunculus with 3 skills. Upgrading these homunculi is also a lot better than the spirits. Exploration, the shop, and optional bosses are the primary ways to find these upgrade materials in Ender Magnolia. If you chose to, you can eventually upgrade everything. In Ender Lilies, you might have to grind if you find yourself switching between spirits, as you don't want the damage to be lacking from them. For me, I ended up sticking to a few spirits and rarely utilized others. At least in Ender Magnolia, if I wanted to use a homunculus right after getting them to see if they're useful to me, I could. Then there's also the removal of limited uses in the skills, which the developers balanced by limiting the player with how much they can equip at once, which has gone from 6 to 4 to be exact. And this is a change I don't mind, and even prefer. And now finally, I want to have a discussion about the parry. In Ender Lilies, I've called the parry options lackluster. For how they worked, I felt that it wasn't worth equipping. The limited uses and the damage weren't enough. So I ended up preferring to dodge or using the relic. In that moment, I wasn't sure how I would improve on the system, I just kinda left it at that. Now in Ender Magnolia, I spent time using the Shackled Beast. I felt like he did enough damage and the cooldown wasn't so bad. However, I kept him around because my brain was kinda stuck on spamming the counter, and that's thanks to the Carapace. The Carapace parry is a stronger version than its relic counterpart in Ender Lilies. You will deal a small amount of damage to both HP and the poise meter too, and this is the first one you have access to as well. The others giving you a different counterattack, giving you SP, or even one that heals you if you parry successfully. That said, I like this change. Generally speaking, I prefer to dodge myself. However, the option to sit in an oncoming active hitbox to counter is hilarious. The obvious downside to failing this is taking a lot of damage, so it's not always the best option. It's high risk, high reward. I did feel like having both options made me a bit too strong at times, but I did work hard to get to the point where I can use the parry like that, so ultimately I'm happy that they changed it. Listen, I can safely call Ender Magnolia a sequel in the truest sense. In every way, this game has been a complete upgrade from Ender Lilies. These developers did a fantastic job with Ender Magnolia. This is an easy recommendation if you love Metroidvanias, and I can't wait for more games from them. Maybe they can dip their toes into other genres in the gaming sphere, or they can make another Metroidvania, whatever floats their boat. The game is $24.99 if you are interested in buying it, and not only is it on the PC, but also the Nintendo Switch, PlayStation, and Xbox consoles. If you've already played Ender Magnolia, I can recommend Ender Lilies as it's still a great game, but if you want to play something else, there's always After Image and Momodora Moonlit Farewell. Both Metroidvanias are beautiful adventures that you should experience. But nevertheless, the choice is yours. But that's it from me. I will see you in the next one.